final session before we head off home. And please, if you could take your seats.
Thank you very much, Silvana. I don't know how much of this I will manage to achieve this afternoon, because obviously I'm not an expert in creating growth and jobs. So my idea was more to present what we have. Oh, now it works better when it's close. What we have financed so far in terms of experimentation for cloud and the future internet, and give some examples of successful projects, tell you a few things about what we are planning to finance in the coming work programs, and maybe at the end make a link as well with the EU investment plan and how it will create growth and jobs. So, first of all, a few words about who we are and what we do. Future Internet Research and Experimentation is an initiative of the European Commission that deals with experimentation at large scale and in real-life environments. So when you have done your research in your lab and you want to experiment in a real setting and you want a large-scale environment, this is what we do. You come to us, we build facilities that we make available to you, and you can actually validate your technologies, validate your ideas, etc. Also, we finance experiments on top of these facilities. We call them experiments, you can call them validations, you can call them tests. So we have two types of projects usually, and this was what we have been doing so far. In this pentagon you see the different types of technology areas or vertical application areas where we have already built experimental facilities. And in the inside of this pentagon you see the names of the projects, but in the outer pentagon you actually see the technology areas or application areas, sensors, Internet of Things, data, cloud, SDN, NFV, etc., etc. So, one example of a successful project I would like to mention, Silvana asked me to mention one or two successful projects, is the Bonfire project. It's a project that was funded under the FP7 framework program, and it has finished actually. So it was active, I mean, the funding has finished, but not the activities of the project. So it was active between 2010 and 2013. It was a multi-site facility for testing cloud applications. And as you see on the slide, there were test beds in Edinburgh, in Poznan, in Ghent, Stuttgart, Sevilla, Rennes, Bristol. And the project started with a few partners, and then over the years they organized open calls, and they got more partners and more experiments, and actually they managed to keep up the sites even for 2 years after the 2 years expire at the end of this year actually. Now we are in the second year of operation of the facility, even after the EU funding ended. And this for us is a big success, because it means that EU funding can create something, but once the funding stops, this does not necessarily mean that what has been created stops. And it can be used for other people to take advantage and to take benefit. And it can be used also in terms of creating opportunities for other innovators or for other developers. So maybe some of the sites have closed at the end of the project, but the Bonfire Foundation that was created at the end of the project kept the facility going, and it is still open and available. And every year when we have a call for new projects and we ask them, where do you want to run your projects, a big majority of them actually ask for resources from the Bonfire project. Yes, this is actually a few more words for the project. What was its value proposition? But I'm not going to go into that. I hope that the slides will be made available afterwards. If you want more information about Bonfire, I'm sure you can find it. So, based on some of our success stories, we were thinking what to finance next and what type of activities and projects we would like to see funded in the upcoming work programs. And based on the priorities we had defined for Horizon 2020, which were to build an infrastructure that can be made available for experimenters and to be able to provide real-world prototyping and seamless experimentation and more innovation. We have actually we have called for more projects in 2014, and in 2015 we are calling for research and innovation actions, integrating more facilities under the umbrella of FIRE that we have already created. And we are actually, this was a novelty when we started it, but now a lot of people use it. In Horizon 2020 terms, it's called third-party financial support. It used to be called sub-granting or cascading grants, etc. The concept is that you reserve part of your funds to help others, to finance others. So we are asking the projects that will be selected not to use the whole budget for themselves, for building and testing the facility, but actually for giving that money to third entities that want to use the facility in order to test their own ideas. So in this year's call, we are asking projects, proposers that will propose facility projects to reserve up to 50% of their funding for that purpose. So to help, for example, innovative SMEs to test their ideas on top of the facility. We also have pure innovation actions, so these are very small projects compared to the previous ones. We want mature experiments, meaning experiments that are closer to the market in terms of testing a product or a service that has to do with the future internet, and we have a focus on SME participation in that respect. This I will not go through. This is informal guidance for proposers. I don't know if any of you here would be interested in submitting proposals, but in general it's good for Horizon 2020 proposals to know that quality of proposals is now very important because the proposals are assessed as they are. There is no margin for negotiation as there used to be in FP7, and innovation aspects should be evident and prominent in every proposal. So, I will try to make a link with the EU investment plan. I'm not an expert in that, but there is one obvious link between what we do under Horizon 2020 in terms of research and the EU investment plan that was announced by the European Commission. One direct link is that part of the money that goes to the EU guarantee comes from Horizon 2020 budget. But I guess that this is not the real link that we are looking for in this workshop. I think what we are looking for is the concept that the EU investment plan is built on the principle that public investment will also trigger private investment. And this is something that we have done under research quite a lot with the PPPs, the public-private partnerships, which means that the EU is committing a certain amount of money to promote certain technology or research, etc. And then it's calling the private sector to do the same and to mirror that investment. Well, the EU investment plan is based a bit on the same principle, so the European Union will put into the investment plan an EU guarantee, and part of that money, as I said, comes also from Horizon 2020, and what we are hoping is that this will generate an equal or if not higher amount from the private sector. And it is a bit what we are trying to do also, as I explained, with Horizon 2020 projects. By putting money on the table from a public source, you're asking also for people to put money there from their private sources. So this is just as an inspiration for our discussion. Before I finish and give the floor to my colleagues, I would like to remind you all, if you don't know already, that we are organizing our Net Futures conference It used to be called the Future Internet Assembly. As of this year, it's Net Futures. It's on the 25th and 26th of March here in Brussels at the Egg. And we will be able to discuss much more about what I mentioned today at that conference. Please join, and I will be very happy to see you there.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to pass the floor now to Dirk van Rooy. He's the head of sector, and he helps coordinate the activities within the European Cloud Partnership. I mentioned, so if anything to do with that, you need to speak to him. Over to you, Dirk. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this works. Okay, thank you, Silvana, for the invitation, and also thanks to Microsoft for the nice hosting here and the nice facilities. It's my first visit here, so I really like it. I hope to come back sometime. Now, I will speak. My name is Dirk van Rooy, and I'm the head of sector of the European Cloud Partnership. Now, initially, when Silvana asked me to give a presentation here, she asked me to speak about opportunities in Horizon 2020. And then she would like some more opportunities, the investment plan. So I scratched a bit my head and said, what can I tell about it? And my colleague already gave a very good introduction to that. Now, so I've chosen to do the following. I have to switch.
Here.
Okay. So.
No? Use this one.
Yeah. So I've chosen to do the following. The cloud work in the Commission has been a journey. So I've chosen to take a starting point in the past, in 2012, when we started with the European Cloud Strategy. Then I want to speak a bit about what we are currently doing, and then give a glimpse of what possibly might happen in the future. So, first of all, the European Cloud Strategy. I will be very short on this, but just to have a common anchor point that everybody knows where we come from. In 2012, the Commission adopted a communication, a policy document on cloud computing. And the emphasis was on job creation, on growth, on the digital single market. There were 3 key actions in it, and I think most of you have heard about the communication, had been involved possibly in the key actions. So we did work on standardization, on contracts, on SLAs, and we also started the European Cloud Partnership, which adopted an advisory policy document, Trusted Cloud Europe. Then we also established a number of procurement actions. Cloud for Europe, C4E, I will tell a bit about it more. And the other one, PIXE, is a support action for cloud procurement, and Silvana herself is involved in that. Perhaps you want to tell a bit about PIXE as well, and make some publicity for that. Okay, and then I want to speak a bit about the job creation. We have been funding a number of studies on the impact that cloud adoption, the use of cloud, the provisioning of cloud could have on the European economy. And according to those studies, which are subject to a number of boundary conditions and initial conditions, the impact could be a growth or a difference in the European GDP of 65 up to 164 billion euros by 2020. Now, is this a lot of money or not? If you would get it on your personal bank account, it would be a lot of money, but the total European economy is currently approximately 14 trillion euros. So on the one hand, it is not in terms of percentages a very gigantic amount. On the other hand, it is amazing that a single technology can have such an impact on the development of the economy. So from that perspective, cloud computing in itself, the adoption, the provisioning, could actually have a tremendous impact. Okay, now this is a picture from Tallinn in 2013, when we were running the European Cloud Partnership. And actually some of the people you might recognize, the former commissioner for this area, Nelly Cruz, the person in the middle in the small picture, but also in the big one, is Thomas Ilves. He is the president of Estonia. And then the other person in the small picture is Rainer Kosch, the CEO of the Austrian government. Now, let me first tell about current opportunities, things that you, if you have an interest, can make use of. And this is ICT 8. ICT 8 is a name for a topic in the work program of Horizon 2020. Now, ICT 8 is about boosting public sector cloud uptake, making sure that the public sector makes use of cloud computing in a reliable, in a cost-effective, in a secure manner. The work program, I will at the end of my presentation provide all the links to all the material that I'm speaking about. How many persons here know about the work program of Horizon 2020? There are quite many, but some people don't know about it. So the work program allows you to, or provides the possibility for sending in a proposal, and if the proposal gets selected, you can probably get funding for your work. Now, in the work program, the first section on ICT 8 is the explanation of the topic, what is the challenge? And the challenge for cloud computing for the public sector is that there is little procurement experience in the actual procurement of cloud services. The public sector has a lot of experience in procuring traditional IT services, but very little experience currently in procuring cloud services. And this is really the barrier that we are addressing in this topic, and we will be funding work trying to address the elements of this barrier. Now, we are speaking about cloud in a very wide sense. Cloud as infrastructure, as software as a service, but also hybrid cloud, private cloud, and you name it. So basically the work program is very wide and open, and is also open in terms of any relevant public sector organization, be it in culture, education, the traditional e-government, libraries, and you name it. Now, this is really the core, on this slide, the core of this topic, ICT 8. It is really the explanation of what you can bid for. There are two components in it, ICT 8A and B. Both of them are about the uptake of cloud computing in public sector organizations. The difference really is in the two keywords. The one is PCP, pre-commercial procurement, and the other one is called PPI. It is public procurement of innovation. Now, I won't have the time to explain the real mechanism for this. It's all explained in our work program. But pre-commercial procurement, in essence, is about defining the problem. Not about finding the solution, but you define as a procurement authority, I have this problem and I want it solved. And then you issue a call for tender, and you set up a partnership with the private industry, with many different consortia, to elaborate possible solutions to your problem. This is what PCP is, it's pre-commercial. PPI is really commercial procurement of a factual cloud computing service. So you know actually not only your problem, you also know the solution, and you're going to specify the solution. Normally, we are not able or not allowed to fund commercial activities. This is commercial procurement. The only reason why we can do it on an exceptional basis is that it is procurement of innovation. It means the solution that you're going to procure has to be at a very early stage of its life cycle. There is no actual use or very little use of that solution, so it's innovative. Okay, what we expected impact, this is the third part of the explanation of the topic ICT 8. What we want to stimulate is increased adoption of smart computing services, and also in a way that the public sector can make use of it in a secure manner, in a cost-effective manner, avoiding lock-in and all the other things. Important, the date, the deadline for this call is 14th of April. So hopefully, if anybody is interested, you already are in kind of discussion with potential partners, otherwise you have to hurry up. Okay, now I want to say a few words about Cloud for Europe. Cloud for Europe is one of the procurement activities we are currently funding under FP7. FP7 was the research program before Horizon 2020. In a way, Horizon 2020 is FP8, but we just don't call it FP8. So this is a very large activity, a total budget of almost like 14 million euros. There are 24 partners from all over Europe involved in it. And they are actually currently in the middle of their call for tender in this pre-commercial procurement mechanism. So if you go to the website, if you're a private company and you would have an interest in bidding for this call for tender, go to the website of Cloud of C4E. It will be at the end of my presentation. Look at it, and I think you only have a couple of weeks left to possibly put in a bid for that call for tender. Okay, Cloud for Europe is now going on for 1.5 years. It has sometimes been very difficult because there are so many public sector organizations involved, and it was also the first project that we had been funding in this area using this mechanism. Now, luckily, in Horizon 2020 we got PIXE, and PIXE is a support action that actually they've recognized the difficulties of the public sector in entering cloud computing, and they've actually set up an entire range of support activities for that, but I'll leave it to Silvana later. Or do you want to say something now? Or?
Well, yeah, I could just quickly say just 2 words in addition to Dirk. So PIXE, the Twitter hash is PIXE Procure. What we're trying to do is actually assess all the best practices and all the issues that arise in organisations trying to procure cloud services in particular, to then kick out a particular framework model that people can go and access and actually find a set of guidelines to support and help them with. We've also put up a partner search on the PIXE website, so if any of you want to actually apply for the 8A or 8B, you can go and access. Already there are people requesting partners and for these 2 specific calls, and we're facilitating that collaboration with PIXE.
Thank you. Then beyond, what do we have currently in the pipeline? And as my colleague already mentioned, it is very difficult to tell at this moment in time because it's all a moving target. So the first thing that we have is, if you have followed the installation of the new commission last year, then you will have noticed there was a lot of emphasis on the digital single market. So a priority for the commission is in the area of IT and telecom, is anything dealing with the digital single market, and we are currently developing cloud computing activities, roadmaps and so on, all in the context of DSM. Another thing what I can say is we are connecting cloud computing with big data. There was a communication of the Commission last year. If you search around, I would say, since we are in Microsoft, if you bing around, then you will find big data in cloud computing. You will find our communication on that. Then, second thing, Horizon 2020. We are currently, and I cannot really give a lot of details because we are in the middle of the preparation of the new work program. Now, member states in the management committee, they have received copies. So I'm not sure if any one of you might have a copy, but I cannot give it to you. So it's currently all in preparation. What I can say is that our intention is to continue the activities in cloud computing that we had before, to think along the similar lines, opening up for testbeds, pilots and so on. All subject to final approval and adoption. And then others is the investment plan, but I think this is too early at this stage to really make any firm statement about. And okay, then I want to close a bit. If you are in the public sector or in the private sector and you want to set up partnerships with the public sector, we did some workshops last year on cloud computing and public sector with interest from science, transport, e-government, education. You will all find this information on our website with very interesting presentations. Another thing, from the ECP, as I mentioned before, the framework for a trusted cloud Europe was established or adopted last year. I highly recommend to read that document. It's very concise, 20 pages only, but it is the product of very intensive discussions. I think I have to stop now, right?
Yes, thank you, Dirk. Round of applause, thank you very much. Our final speaker of the afternoon is Svetoslav Mihalov, as I said, from the Smart Cities and Sustainability, but he's going to zoom in clearly in the context of today's workshop and the experience around some of the projects, particularly around data centres. Okay, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Silvana. As mentioned, my name is Svetoslav Mihalov. I'm working within the Smart City Sustainability unit in DG Connect. And I'll explain what is the next slide. I'll explain about the priorities of our unit. And then zoom in on the Smart Cities platform, on the initiatives within FP7 and H2020 on sustainable data centers, then a workshop that we did last year from which we took some feedback. One action in Horizon 2020, a couple of words about the program 16-17, but where I'm going to stay more or less in the same situation as my colleagues. So, what does our unit deal with? So, it's called Smart City Sustainability, so of course the focus is about smart cities, so smart living and resource-sufficient infrastructure. They're both interlinked, they're not necessarily standalone items. If we look within the smart cities half of it, what are we doing? We have a kind of non-funding instrument, which is the European Innovation Partnership, which is, we requested commitments from society, from the market, and from these commitments, now we have found eligible commitments, and with like 3,000 partners, we are working on the idea of the smart cities within action clusters. So there are like 6 action clusters and several sub-action clusters. The funding instrument, which is within smart cities and communities, the Horizon 2020, where we have large-scale lighthouse projects and CSAs. Now, within the program for last and this year, we had 200 million on this kind of projects. The vast majority of this, virtually the totality, came here. The CSAs were with very small funding. And the budget was split more or less equally between last year and this year, with a bit more this year than last year. The CSAs were on KPIs for sustainability in smart cities and on standardization within smart cities. And I'll show what the scope was on the next slide. If we look at resource-efficient infrastructures, then we have smart grids, transport, water and waste, and among these also data centers. This is because we're funding this under H2020, etc. But we also look at sustainability of networks. So you can say that the cloud is covered in this respect, but it's not called cloud in our work as such. So, in respect to the smart cities, I just want to show one important thing that we are working towards, and this is how the ICT interoperability of the smart cities will be organized. We're working towards a kind of a platform, an operating system, that will be linking the different smart sectors within a city, such as smart grids, transport, retail, any other water waste domain, with a kind of an application domain, This platform will consist of certain number of functionalities, which will perform via well-known standards in the industry, and it will use open APIs to connect to allow the applications to connect and use the data. So it will, one of its main goals is to expose the data coming from the smart cities towards the application providers, and then of course the actionable items will be sent back to the sectors. So there will be open APIs towards the application providers and towards probably other cities, and probably kind of database inside. So what we're really concerned is this vertical interoperability. We are thinking that horizontally between the applications will be not possible at this stage because it's kind of an n factorial problem. So the CSA, the Coordination Support Action that I mentioned for smart cities, it is requesting consortium made of industry, cities, and standards organizations to come up with this kind of framework platform. And once we have the standards for this, we are heading into deploying platforms within the smart cities. They have started already being deployed, but what we see is the interoperability is an issue. So once we have the standards, if all the platforms align to these standards, which will not need everything, will really establish the most important functionality and standardize it, then we see the possibility to reuse the applications throughout the European Union, further afield even. And of course avoid vendor lock-in and all the other advantages of such a standardized approach. Now, if you look at the data center as such, and FP7, H2020, to see where we can be moving and where we're going. So there was initially, some years ago, already an initial call on sustainability of data centers, which was within FP7, of course, this time, which was focused on individual efficiency of data centers versus efficiency of cluster of data centers. And there were 4 projects funded for a total of about 12 million. Then later on, we had a call again on sustainability of data centers, where the focus was renewables, heat reuse, integration with the smart grids, etc. And this was for about 18 million. And there are like 6 ongoing projects at this moment. They started towards the end of 2013, and they'll continue for 3 years, so they'll finish at the end of next year. We also asked these projects from these 2 calls to work in a project cluster in order to define common metrics and methodologies for these metrics, because we see, well, there were several reasons for doing this, of course. One is that on the market, there are not that many reliable metrics that we can use for policy, for example, or really comparing data centers. They're also going beyond state-of-the-art with all these technologies, so of course there are no metrics for measuring this beyond state-of-the-art, but because they all are working on similar subjects, so it only makes sense that they develop one set of metrics that can be used for all these projects. Then we can really compare the different approaches, see which one is the most effective. And also work will be done once, and they can use the standards organizations. If we go a bit further, last year we had a call on public procurement of fast-evolving technologies, and in brackets like data centers. And essentially we got a proposal that was about data centers. It was for about 1.5 million, and we selected a project, Eureka, that will continue for a couple of years now. And the idea was to, because okay, some things have been used, some should be researched, but they are not brought to the market, so we're thinking the public procurement can play this role of pulling the market. But we see that because buying high-tech equipment is a specific thing, I mean, most of the people here are working in tech companies. For them it's perfectly normal to write a long request for quotation, request for tender with a lot of very detailed, but it's not so obvious in a town. They don't have this expertise. So the idea was to teach them about this and also to create networks to be able to buy this equipment. And you'll see later on in the work program we're thinking of continuing this kind of thinking. And then currently we have another coordination support action, which is on support for measuring the environmental efficiency, and I'll mention it now. No, first we had last year, about a year ago, we had a workshop with all the people involved in sustainability, the most important people involved in sustainability of data centers, and we had certain outcome of this. By concern policy and actions, methodologies, metrics, harmonization of measures, etc. Probably I'm not gonna go too much into the detail, but one of the things was, for example, the European Code of Conduct. They were saying that we could put more efforts, and then it's, especially if we translate it, etc., and help the people to understand it. This will help initially start already the adoption of sustainability methodologies, etc., within the European Union. There is a report, so you can see the results. But once we had this advice, and we also have had different other initiatives that I didn't mention in the past concerning ICT equipment. We've had a footprint initiative piloting the footprint methodologies, which showed very good visibility of these methodologies, etc. So combining all these outcomes of workshop and other initiatives in the past, we saw the need to create this coordination support action, because some metrics methodologies and direct practices exist. So methodologies, as you said, developed by ITU, etc., with our help, with our participation, the best practices like the code of conduct, etc. So they exist, they have been created, but they're not broadly deployed. And some of the reasons, among the others, is like the lack of awareness, especially small organizations, the fact that it's not translated, so obviously this is kind of barrier for some companies in some countries. So that's why within this CSA we are foreseeing that there will be kind of help desk service, online support, and translation of the important documents, such as the Code of Conduct, for example. And this will facilitate the update of these methodologies and metrics that exist. The technical areas will include data centers and networks, and the duration is 3 years. Now, of course, I already described more or less what we expect as outcome, and I think it's fairly clear. In order not to go too much into detail, more information you can get from my colleague Cristobal and at this web address. And the deadline is in May this year. The budget is about $500,000. So the next program, I think my colleagues already said this, that it's under development, that we cannot really put on slides, because I cannot put on slides what will appear there. Why? Because first of all, it's too early. Second, it several times went in all directions. I mean, we're really working on it. And there's more than just DG Connect that is working on this. So DGNet is quite interesting topic, so we are discussing with them, DG RTD. So we have modified several times the subject, but some of the topics that we're discussing, for example, we're trying to continue this public procurement area and to create what Dirk described there, a pre-commercial procurement action, for example, in order to push these technologies that are being researched now within our projects, to push them to the market, to help them reach the market. So this is one of our ideas that we are quite advanced with. Normally it's supposed to appear and to stay. But also it could go even further, because the data center as a big consumer can also play an important role within the ecosystem of the energy consumption and balancing the grids, because it's an endpoint that can, within our project we saw, you can shift the load, etc. So you can play around in order to balance the usage in the grid. So that's another subject that might appear, and other areas as well. But that's for the moment what I'm going to say.
Okay, thank you very much. That is it. Round of applause.